Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's discussion. Before we get started and introducing these wonderful people we have on the panel today, this is Webinar Jam, and this is a platform. If you haven't used this before, I'm going to give you a few house rules, and then we'll get started. So in the chat box on the right, you'll see a little chat icon. Don't be shy. Put where you're from, say hello, and ask any questions as we go through this session today. So yeah, that's there for you. If for any reason you drop out, you can log back in anytime via this email link that was sent to you. If you can't hear us, log out, log back in again, and a replay is available and will be sent to you straight after this session, so that if your internet is patchy or anything like that, you won't miss out. So I hope you enjoy this session, and for now I will pass over to Manu.
Hello everybody, very nice having you here. Thank you for all the guests for being here. Thank you for trying the chat so I can see it's working. It's the first time I use this platform, so I'm very happy to see it's working. So my name is Emmanuel. I'm going to be moderating this this discussion today on motivation. And just before we start, I would invite you to write in the chat, what does motivate you? So if you can write a sentence or word or something about what motivates you when you wake up in the morning, when you want to do sports, when you want to perform, when you go to work, when you want to play with your kids, what does motivate you? So I invite you to go in the chat and write that and answer that question. During that time, I'm going to present our guest, and then we'll see a little bit of the answer after that on what's motivating you. So here we go about the panelists. Well, myself, I'm going to be very short. I started as a street performer. I was a circus artist for 15 years, working with top-notch companies. And then I worked for almost also 15 years with community action from Cirque du Soleil, the Cirque du Monde program around the world, mostly in favelas and townships, and doing what I can to use my passion for circus art as a social mean. I'm currently working with the Center for Circus Art Research, Innovation and Knowledge Transfer at the National Circus School of Montreal. And we have today the honor to have Andy Buchanan. I hope I'm pronouncing your family name correctly, Andy. Andy Buchanan, you can wave to the camera so we know who you are. Do you hear me, Andy?
Maybe can't hear.
No? Okay, so I'm going to keep going.
I can't hear anything.
You can't hear anything? Okay, does GP, you can hear me? And
yeah, I can hear you.
You, Anna.
Okay, so I'm going to keep going. So Andy Buchanan is currently a professional skater with Dancing on Ice. He was an artist at Cirque du Soleil. He works with Disney on Ice and many other shows and companies. And Andy was also the talent scout for ice skating at Cirque du Soleil, and he continues to work with world-level competitive skaters as coach and choreographer. And most recently, Andy co-founded Creative Athletic Performance. So you should check that out, Creative Athletic Performance. Andy, do you hear us? Still not.
That's all right. I might have to kick. I told him to log out and log back in, so I can kick him. I'll kick him out if he can't hear us.
Okay, Anna, so kick him out and then invite him back. Okay.
All right.
I will present the other guest. So we also have the honor to have Laura Ann Chong. Hello, Laura.
Hi.
So Laura, enthusiastic about connecting artists with their audience and championing athletes' rights. Chong's passions naturally extend from her experience as a professional performer, a former elite gymnast, and her ongoing effort with community involvement. Chong worked both under the spotlight as an acrobat and behind the scene in public relation with Cirque du Soleil. As a chair of the tour's social committee at Cirque du Soleil, improving tour morale and employee connectivity were with both high priorities for her. So during the pandemic, Chong, with many different colleagues and partners, co-founded the LUMIÈRE project, actually also with myself and GP and many other people. Thank you, Laura. Do you have any word to say before I present the next guest?
I'm just very excited to be here today. Motivation obviously is something that we all need, especially right now. And so I'm really pleased to see in the chat some of the people that I know through past lives or have invited recently. And so, yeah, I'm just excited to have this chat with everyone. I hope everyone is able to get something out of it, whether you're an athlete, an artist, a parent of an athlete, of a circus performer, you know, someone who's looking to change careers. This is for you guys. So please let us know in the chat if there's anything in particular that you really want to touch on.
Thank you very much, Lauren. It's so nice to have you around. So, Andy, are you back with us?
I am back.
Okay, so you've missed the presentation I made for you. So I said only good things, so don't worry. Andy, do you have any word to say just before I present the next guest?
Oh, you need to turn your microphone. Oh, there you are.
No, that's good.
You're there. Ahead. We can hear you. We can hear you.
Sorry. I just hope that everybody gets the same kind of positive thing I got out of understanding the theory of motivation and the theory of self-determination. Since understanding it, I've applied it to my own life and my own experience, and it's been like a good practice in understanding, and it's helped me adjust my choices as a performer and more as a coach, actually, to try and help people self-motivate rather than the old school way of like forcing them to motivate. So yeah, I really, I think for performers and coaches, they'll get a lot out of this. And yeah, I welcome any questions.
Thank you so much, Andy, for being here. It's so nice to have very practical experience on how to apply this theory. So we won't stay at the theoretical level, but we'll talk about concrete things that you can do as a coach. So our next guest, actually our host, thank you very much for co-organizing this event with Projet LUMIÈRE, Anna Robb. So Anna is an experienced producer, production stage manager. Her 20 years work history spans Asia Pacific, the Americas, Africa, the Middle East, and Europe. She has worked for companies such as Cirque du Soleil, Franco Dragon Entertainment Group, the Sydney Opera House, and many others. Anna also teaches cross-cultural communication at Hong Kong University. Anna is also the co-founder and managing director for TheatreArtLife. So TheatreArtLife, thank you for hosting this. And Anna is passionate about the evolution of the entertainment industry. Hello, Anna. Thank you for having us.
Hello. I'm so honored to be hanging out with you guys today.
Great. And last but not least, Jean-Paul Richard. Jean-Paul Richard was a freestyle World Cup coach for several years with the Swedish national mogul ski team and the Canadian women's freestyle ski team. He developed and applied a coaching approach aimed at creating well-being and performance environment. He brought athletes to win gold and silver medals at the 2014 Olympic Winter Games. And Jean-Paul was also manager of team service at the Canadian Olympic Committee and manager for coaching and performance at Cirque du Soleil for many years. Jean-Paul, thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome. Thank you. Very nice to be here.
So, so the way it's going to work, so Jean-Paul is going to make us a little presentation about this theory for 10-15 minutes, and then we will have a convenient and casual discussion with Andy, Lauren, and Anna and Jean-Paul on practical ways of applying this theory. Jean-Paul, just before we start, I don't know if you look at the chat, what motivates people? And I'm just wondering if you had any surprise. So I'm going to dig. Other people tend to motivate me the most: teamwork, living my life to the fullest, log out and back in. Andy, that's not the motivation thing. A good coffee in the morning, for sure. Good music, purpose, caffeine, learning opportunities. So, Jean-Paul, any surprise?
No, it sounds pretty good, actually. Yeah.
Okay, great. So just before I give you the mic, for everybody who's listening, don't hesitate to ask questions in the chat. Don't hesitate to participate, to put comments, ideas, to share anything you have in mind. It's going to serve us. And at the end of the discussion, we will look at the chat and retake some of the questions for our guests. All right? So good. Jean-Paul, I invite you to do your little presentation. And I'll give you like 15 minutes and trying to keep the time right.
Thank you so much, Manu. Okay, so little presentation just to give us visual, to put words on something. It's quite difficult to see motivation. You know, everybody needs and use motivation every day, but sometimes it's not really visible, but it's so important. So during my presentation, I'm just gonna give I try to give strong visual and make an image, and after that, you know, we will discuss during the panel. So how do we maintain our motivations? I always start with that question. Motivation, is it a question of quantity or a question of quality? Many years ago, like Manu said, you know, I was a former freestyle ski coach. And for me, that was a question of quantity. So my athletes, or even me, they have a lot of motivation or not enough motivation. And after that, when I discovered more information about the theory, it became that was more a question of quality. And I will explain why. And after that, we can discuss it on the panel also. Another thing I want to share tonight, it's about motivation is a skill. And for some people, when I give training or conferences, for some people, you know, it's a new thing or a new way to look at the motivation. But motivation, it's is really a skill, and it's what I discovered during my second cycle for the Olympic Games in Sochi. And I just implement into my Olympic plan the same way of other technical skills, but motivation was a big part of my plan. And it's really where I discover the theory of motivation. Self-determination theory, here in one slide, you have 45 years of research. Self-determination theory, it's one of the strongest or the strongest theory about motivations. It's studied all around the world. A lot of researchers study or use that framework to do a lot of research in a different field. And in sport, at work, with the family, you know, all of the researcher use that theory. And it's exactly what I did as a freestyle ski coach. Instead of using my expertise, my beliefs, or sometimes my fears, like my first Olympic in Vancouver, I just decided to use the theory, the self-determination theory, as a framework. So every decision I took, everything I did about my Olympic plan and direction of Sochi was based on that theory. And I'm just gonna go through the slide to let you discover that theory. So I think everybody knows we have like intrinsic motivation and we have extrinsic motivation, but we have more than that, and it's exactly what you have on the screen right now. Actually, we have 6 motivations, and not only intrinsic and extrinsic. We have, if we start to the right, we have 3 motivation who will give you more energy and more autonomy about your motivation. And for sure, the intrinsic motivation, it's the one of pleasure and to have fun. When you do something fun, of course, you know, you're really into it, and it's really easy to do everything to achieve the different tasks or the behavior to do different activities. But you have also 2 others, meaning and utility. And that one is really, really important. And it's exactly what I discovered on the road to Sochi. Meaning, it's where you have a good cause, or you have really powerful goals you want to reach, and it's exactly what's gonna give you a meaning. And utility, it's motivation. It's where you do something and it's useful for you, but for others also. And when you work with those motivation, but it's where you're gonna have more high quality of well-being, a lot of vitality, and more healthy condition. And I just put like a battery there, so you're gonna have a lot of energy if you go with that kind of motivation. On the other side, you have also less good motivation about the energy. It's where, you know, you're gonna have motivation about the ego when something will be imposed on you, or you're gonna do something to make sure you're better than other one of your colleague, or better on anyone else. So it's more that kind of motivation who's gonna give you some energy, but it's not the most important one. And after that, of course, you have the external motivation, the rewards. Of course, you know, if you do something because it's about money, or it's about results, or it's about having absolutely recognition from your boss or your peers, of course, it's going to give you some energy, but not as good quality than the three others motivation I just presented. And after that, you have the disinterested motivation. It's more about when you're really not into it, and it's more like the I don't care, and you almost want to quit what you are doing. All of this, it's suboptimal motivation. And if you look at the battery, is more low energy. And if you stay too much time into that kind of motivation, it's gonna brings more distraction, burnout, dysfunctional performance also. Here's again the 6 motivations we have. It's like a continuum, and you can move on different motivation, and it's normal to move. But because it's a skills, you have power and you have some control on it. And to go with the 3 optimal one, or the autonomous motivation, utility, meaning, and fun, you need to do something. And it's just what I will present the next slide. What you need to do to reach fun, meaning, and utility, really optimal motivation, you need to fulfill 3 psychological needs. All of the human on earth have the 3 psychological needs. It's exactly what the theory explained. And that's why, you know, they did a lot of research all around the world just to compare the different countries, and it's all the same. We are human. To be sure, you know, we fulfill our need of social affiliation or relatedness. We need to have good interaction with others, feeling connected with others, and be good member of a group. We need to feel also autonomy, origin of our behavior, sense of choice, ownership, behavior consistent with our own value. What we value, if we have the autonomy to work with our value, it's gonna fulfill these needs. And after that, the last one, competence. We need to feel we have an impact every day in our environment. We need to feel competent at work, at school, and also at home. And feeling competent, it's something really, really important as a human being. But to be sure, you know, to fulfill those needs, you need to go with just what I've explained, and you need to turn the psychological needs in green. It's that image I give you. If it's green, you're gonna have a high quality of motivation. And if you fulfill the 3 needs with your intervention as an individual, but also if you are a manager or a director, you can create the environment to be sure you fulfill the needs of the people around you and on your team. It's going to bring autonomous motivation. It will bring you more in the utility, meaning, and fun motivation. And the consequences of this on the psychological side will be well-being, vitality, physical, more healthy condition. You're going to be more healthy, with your behavior, you're going to adapt more and you're going to have more creativity about the performance or any kind of creativity. And of course, you know, when we talk with organization about economic, if we work and fulfill the needs of employees or people inside of the organization, we're going to have like lower cost, short and long-term cost. And it's exactly the same also if we frustrate those needs. Of course, you know, the arrow will go more on the low quality of psychological need, and it will brings us low energy, and it's not really what we want. So we want green. It's really, really important to understand that. I really like that graph here because you have everything to make sure you practice your skills of motivation and to be sure you go on the right part of the graph. So on the horizontal axis, you have the psychological needs you need to fulfill. And the vertical axis, you have the self-regulation, the quality of self-regulation. And I told you it's a skills. So you have 3 steps to be sure you will be able to shift and to go more on the top of this graph and go on the optimal motivation part. So the first one, the first step, you need to identify your perspective on the motivation. So just here I put an arrow. Maybe you can be more attracted about rewards. You need to recognize that. You need to identify that. And after that, you need to reflect. Do you want to stay there? Do you feel okay to stay there? If you want to shift, after that, you just need to be sure you fulfill your 3 needs. If you fulfill your 3 needs, and after that, you have good self-regulation, you're going to be able to reach the top, the meaning, the utility, and the fun motivation we have as a human being. So again, identify where you are on the graph, changing your perspective, and after that, reflecting when you change your perspective. If you were on the rewards and after that you go more on the meaning and the utility or fun, what brings you to be there and what kind of energy this will give you for the rest of your day or the rest of your week. The way, again, to use the skills and use the different steps, it's, again, identify, asking good question where you are in that kind of on the graph. And always, you know, if you want to change, you need to self-regulate. Quality of self-regulation, it's really, really important. And after that, you know, be sure you ask the good question to know how can I increase my needs of autonomy? How can I increase my need of competence and my need of affiliation? And when you are able to answer this question, it will bring more quality in those 3 needs. Again, motivation is a skill. With that graph, psychological needs, super important to turn into the green. And after that, self-regulation, it's really, really important. How can we self-regulate in a good way? What is really, really important? 3 powerful techniques for high quality of self-regulation. Be sure you're here and now. Be sure the quality of your presence, it's at an optimal way. You're not on your phone, you're not in your head, you're really present and you really understand what's going on around you. Be present also, or have a quality of present, it's to see different situations around you and you're not judging what happened and you're not react of what happened. You're just stay in that moment just to be sure you understand what's going on inside of you and what's going on around you. Knowing your values, really, really important. Sometimes, you know, we think we know our values. The different groups I worked with the last few weeks, I asked that question. We did like different exercise to know our values. The values you had before the COVID, maybe it's time to work again with that kind of values. Maybe the values shift a bit, or maybe it's a bit different right now. And the intention, it's really important to know your intention. Intention, it's a really noble cause, something really meaningful for you. You need to know that. And if you have good intention, you know your values, and you're in a present moment, you're going to be able to reach a high quality of self-regulation. This is an image in 2014, the 8th of February 2014, just before the final. That was exactly the image I had. I was at the bottom of the Mogul course, and my athletes was there just waiting to go down, and you know, after that going back on the top to perform. In my head, it's the way I saw the needs of my athletes. All needs was green, so I knew we were in a good position to achieve a good performance. And it's exactly what happened, with some adversity, but when you work with good motivation, you have a better chance to have good performance. It's the way I discover with Olympic level. After that, when I work with Cirque du Soleil, it's exactly the way I work with my different teams in Montreal. And you can also work with kids, with everybody, trying to create the environment to fulfill their needs. And it's really the way they will reach meaning, utility, and pleasure. And all of I just explained, you know, the last minutes. You know, it's part of the invisible part of the performance. It's the way I like to say it. Sometimes we're more attracted on the visible part, so it's more, you know, the peak of the iceberg, using that image. You know, the technique, the physical, we go there, everything with different programs we have, you know, Excel sheet or all that stuff, it's visible. But everything else, you know, emotions, the 3 psychological needs, the science of motivation, leadership, self-leadership, psychological safety. Right now, we talk more and more about psychological safety and mental health. It's invisible. And the image I gave to coaches or directors or managers, sometimes we just need to lower down the waterline just to see what's going on under, you know, under the surface, just to be sure we work with those things to have like an impact on the motivation. There you go, Manu.
Fantastic, Jean-Paul. Thank you very much. Just for the people who are listening, replay will be available, so don't worry if you need to recatch the theory and listen it again. Replay will be available. So I'm going to turn to Jean-Paul, you can stop sharing your screen so we'll see everybody's faces. Here we go. And I'm very curious to hear, maybe we go with Laura Ann. How does this theory speaks to you, like this frame of reference? As an artist, how does this theory, you know, we understand utility, meaning, and fun. How does it speak to you?
Well, it was interesting to see that graph where you had the three factors on one side, the red ones, right? And red and orange, and then you had the green, yellow on the other side. And it was interesting because when I compare my life as an athlete versus an artist, there was a lot of times as an athlete that I was kind of in that red zone. I was a gymnast, right? And so everything was about comparing your abilities to your competitor, and it was a very individualized sport. And so I know there's some parents here who are listening today who have gymnasts or other athletes as kids, and they're trying to also figure out a way to motivate their athletes, especially during this time. And one thing that I would caution about is watching that they don't get so wrapped into comparing yourself to others. As an artist, and because I've had more years under my belt, I've definitely been able to recognize when I am comparing myself to others. And it's still something that's been ingrained in me ever since I was young. So it is one of those competencies that I have to try and work at constantly is to try to not compare myself to others. You're never going to be that person, that other person that you're comparing yourself to. And you have to try and recognize, and this goes back to the autonomy part, like what comes from in you and what speaks to you to motivate you. So for example, as an artist, whenever we were doing shows, we had 8 to 10 shows a week. You know, you have one day off. You have Monday off on the tour that I was on, and I was on tour for 7 years. And so a lot of the time you can kind of get into this little rut or this burnout a little bit, and you just have to try and figure out a way that you're going to still connect to the audience every single show, because you have to realize that, you know, people who are coming to see the shows, they're probably never, ever going to see that show ever again. Like, this is the one and only time that they're coming. And I think once I realized that, it really helped me motivate myself that, okay, the lights go on, you step through that curtain and you're going to give your all, no matter what's going on below that waterline or that surface that Jean-Paul showed, right? So that's definitely something that I had to realize. Because yeah, there's people who are going to be better at you at everything, but what are you good at and what can you control? And that's a lot of things that my coaches always tried to, you know, help me see is what can you control, and what's under, what speaks to you. So yeah, I think I think I touched a little bit on that. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes really total sense. And I really like when you say, what can you control? Because there's things that we can control, other things that it's very hard to control. And that's all about what choice we make and how we can make choices. Jean-Paul, you wanted to comment what Laurent was just saying?
Yeah, you know, when she just said or explained the way she compare herself with others, it's more the ego part, you know, it's and it's where we struggle. And most of the time, you know, we are there unconsciously. But when we start to notice it, after that, you can make sure you have clear goals, clear intention, and you can shift and you can go more to have fun and to go into your meaning. What means to be an athlete, or what means to you to be an artist, and make sure to have an impact on the audience every night. It's really meaningful.
Oh yeah, for sure. And definitely, like, to go with that fun piece, like obviously being in a circus is fun, you know, like we love to, Andy can attest to this, you love getting your makeup on, your costume, and being able to play someone else. But as I mentioned, those days, you know, Sunday first and second shows were the hardest shows for us sometimes, because it's your last day before your day off. You had the long week ahead of all the other shows, plus training, plus integrating new artists or whatever it may be. And so those were the shows that I in particularly always made sure that I picked 1 or 2 people in the audience, because sometimes if it's day in, day out, you know, the audience is kind of a blank space, you know, there's people there, but you're not really aware, you're not really present. So one trick that I found was, if I, at the beginning of the opening of the show, if I made eye contact with one audience member on each side of the stage, then I knew I was doing that show for that particular person. And it just made that show so much more meaningful for me, so that I would get motivated and be able to get through the show, even if I was, you know, super low on my motivation beforehand. So that was a trick that I really found helpful, and would encourage people to do if they are an artist, or you know,
or even,
any
and I will jump on this, because even working in an office, you can always send a quick email to somebody, a colleague, and say, can we have a chat? Informal time, we're in lack of informal time right now. We're online, it's on, off, all our relations. But having an informal time with someone and trying just to say, how is it going, and exchange, and talking about passions and other stuff can be a similar trick, I guess. And Andy, I want to turn to you, because you are also a coach and a choreographer. So I'm very curious how you use this. Do you use this in your practice? And to start, Jean-Paul was talking about autonomy in the theory, which is very interesting, social affiliation, competence, and autonomy. But autonomy doesn't mean only liberty. I think autonomy can come with some coaching and frames or directions. So I would love to hear you. Do you use this theory in your coaching methods?
Yes, and I've actually used it before I knew what it was. As a competitive skater, competitive athlete, it's very reward driven. It's like, if you work this hard, you can get this medal, or you can go to this competition. And, I feel like it's the wrong kind of motivation, because then you see those performers or skaters that skate and they do it because they actually just love it. They feel like they want to do it every day. And that's what I learned in shows. In competition, it was just like always about like, okay, how do I get to the next level? But being in shows, like, I've had a long career. Being a performer at 43 is not normal. But my wife and I, we constantly keep learning and wanting to learn more, and we do a lot of the things Laurent said. Like, we really try to connect with the audience and realize it's a new audience every week. And we got to the point where it's like, okay, when you talk about affiliation, it's a lot about what you can get from other people as part of a group, but we're also at that stage of our career where we think about what can we give to others. And it's really interesting. I don't know if it's just getting older and ego goes away, but I get more reward out of seeing somebody do something I do better than I do than doing it now. It's really interesting. It's something that I really enjoy now, because as a coach, I don't have that thing where I hold back or I try to say, okay, I'm not going to teach that because that's mine. It's like, no, I want my tricks to live on. And then I go back, we were talking earlier about in North America as a coach, it's always private lessons, individual time. A lot of the countries around the world that are getting the best results are having these group lessons where they encourage the older kids to mentor the younger kids. And they have this almost competitive environment, but in a positive way. And I think that fulfills all three parts of the theory of motivation. And I've applied that to a lot of my coaching. Like right now, I'm on a show in the UK where I'm teaching celebrities how to skate. Now, they don't have goals of going to the Olympics. We want them to do well on TV, but our goal is to have them fall in love with the sport. And so each time I'm like, okay, I try to give them a choice in their training. I try to give them a choice in the direction we're going with routines, and then we'll hone in on it, and I'll use my knowledge over the years to make it, valid. And it's really great because we have created this bond and this partnership, not where I'm the expert teaching, we're both part of a group that's moving together. And so I think that's been, we've had a lot of success with that, especially in this situation. When it comes to COVID, when we got locked down, I remember the first thing we thought was, okay, our environment's changing. We have to make a choice. My wife and I said this, like, we make a choice, and not making a choice is a choice. We're like, okay, we can either adapt, or we can just sit back and wait for Cirque du Soleil to come back. The minute I thought that, anxiety everywhere, because I need to be in control. I need to do something. So we're like, okay, we're going to form our own company. And it wasn't an easy choice. It was a terrifying choice. But once we made that choice, the next thing we were like, during this time, during COVID, this is the only time we've ever been able to really control the people we surround ourselves with. Mm-hmm. And we were like, we only want to be surrounded with people that make us better, make us feel better about ourselves. I always talk about the best thing ever on Facebook is the snooze button, because if somebody is super negative, you have the choice not to see any of their posts for a while. Maybe they're having a phase. So we've really decided to put the snooze button on the negative and like really bring in the positive and people that make us better. So we've really like fulfilled that part of the theory as well that way. And with competence, I really think we because we have that give and take with our students and we try to make them part of the learning, we learn so much from them. I don't know how many times we've taught students like some of our moves or things we've done, and they've come back and done it better. And we're like, can you show us how to do that now, please? So we've been kind of doing this for a while, but now that we understand it, it's really interesting to apply it in a with the understanding and in a practical way, just to everyday life, not even as an athlete, but in choices. Yeah.
I love this. Thank you so much. And there's two things that I really want to highlight is making choice. And it takes courage, and you have to go out of the comfort zone. So COVID forced it, but sometimes we can make that move, to make some choices. And then teaching others. And me as a coach, in all my experience, I've always said, as soon as you can ask somebody to go mentor someone else and teach to someone else, do it. Because as you say, it's incredible. You give the sense of confidence, of competence, of autonomy, of social affiliation. You really fulfill the three needs. And it's something that's always amazing that happened after that. So let's go see Anna from Hong Kong. So very late.
Yeah.
Thank you for hanging with us. So I'm also curious about, as a producer, a manager, as you run teams, you run many projects. So how does this resonate to you? You have some example on maybe managing teams or as a mom, as you wish, because I know you have kids.
Yeah. Oh, it's so multifaceted. I really identify with Laura and Andy in their motivation with regards to a relationship with the audience, even as a backstage person, going sometimes when I worked on a show for 7 years. So calling that show over and over and over and over is something that you have to dig deep sometimes to figure out how you stay present. And I love the idea of, presence brings a freshness to it if you stay present. And a lot of the time I would call the first cue of the show from the show caller booth, and I would tell myself every time, call it like it's your last show. and I would do that because it immediately would bring me into a place like, and who knows if it was my last show, you never know what happens in life. And so if you stay present in that situation, then for me, then you're going to enjoy that process much more. You're going to enjoy the job much more. Secondly, I feel like this year has been particularly difficult for a lot of people in terms of their jobs, and what usually would motivate them in their work has suddenly been ripped away from them, right? So for me, even going from that green zone to the red zone has been a jump between both of those things, because when we love what we do, we identify ourselves with that job, right? And so therefore when it's taken away, what then therein is what after that is our motivation. And so you have to, I hate the word pivot because it's kind of a buzzword right now, but you do have to pivot your focus and try and draw down on the other things that you find motivation in, rather than what your work is. And that's the problem with defining yourself by your work, because it really needs to be larger than that. I think you need to have larger motivations than just what you do for work. And that's why I think Andy, when you're teaching other people, it's becoming larger than yourself, and it's feeding you in a different way. And I do the same, even doing a lot of these webinars this year has fed me as I'm sharing with others. And I find that one thing that I do want to note about the green zone when I'm leading teams or leading a group of people, because I often have to go into a place like the Middle East and bring a group of people together very quickly and run a show. And if you operate from that green zone, that motivation can spread. And I find it's very powerful. Like if you're down in the red zone and you're operating from that place as a leader or as a person who's got to push a production forward, you don't have people rallying around you like you do if you're in the green zone. And I find that energy can then come back at you tenfold and you have more success in your job. So it's nice to see it articulated on a piece of paper, what sometimes you might know or work innately, but to label it and to be able to keep focusing on that green zone is a really good resource.
Thank you very much. It's a very good example as leaders, as managers of teams. This is so important. And just before we continue, I see the time running, and I would invite everybody that is listening to this webinar to ask questions or put comments in the chat. And maybe in 5-10 minutes, we'll go and look at the question in the chat and answer directly on your preoccupation. So I see there's some actions in the chat, but feel free to go. It's a good time now to go and put your question. And now it's up to anybody who would like to answer. Well, first of all, I have to say, I've discovered the theory 2 years ago, maybe more or less, and I use it a lot. And now today I'm still learning experience from artists from stage. And I have a feeling I should have heard that 35 years ago when I started my career. So I hope this is useful for many young artists who are listening to us, how to stay motivated, show after show, repeating the same act, the same movement every night, listening to the same music and stuff, and how you keep your motivation. So this is very useful, at least for me. A bit late, but very useful. Never too late. So, and
yeah, I want to actually. Oh, sorry, I was just going to jump in there real quick and touch on two things that were talked about by Andy and Anna really briefly. So Andy mentioned, you know, being able to put your ego aside, and we've talked a lot about like if we're, you know, once we're older and we're able to see this and stuff. But I know there's a lot of parents on here who are also wondering how they can help their children moving forward, or who are current athletes, you know. So one thing that Andy mentioned was how training now, you've noticed that when you're working in a group versus individual private lessons, there's a lot different, there's different types of motivation, right? Like it's almost like when you're in a team atmosphere, you're starting to get more into the green zone versus in that red zone of the egotistical motivation of trying to compare yourself. And that's something that as a gymnast, I really noticed. So when I was on national team, this was back in 2000, 2004 era, I was kind of the only one in my particular training group who was going for the senior national levels and doing the elite competitions and such. And so I did have more of that private lessons twice a week kind of thing. And I did feel a little secluded. And we, at the time, Gymnastics Canada didn't have a lot of training camp opportunities. You know, we'd have maybe 2 or so after major competitions that we'd all get together in Montreal. But you really miss that. And then I went to the NCAA. I got a scholarship there, and it's a completely different mindset, right? Like now you're competing for a team, you're competing for a school, and you can really see there's tons of elite gymnasts who came from high competitive, who may have been burned out, may have been injured a lot, or may have just, you know, been so individualized during their whole careers. And then they finally get to NCAAs. Maybe they didn't even want to go to NCAAs because a lot of the time they're just like, my parents forcing me to go get a scholarship just because I can and to get the schooling, right? But they don't really want, they've completely fallen out of love of the sport. And this isn't just gymnastics. This goes for a lot of athletes, of course, right? But I've always noticed that those gymnasts who are then put into these team atmospheres, they come out of their 4 years competing at NCAAs a completely different gymnast. You know, a lot of them talk about going back into elite gymnastics because now they've refound that love of the sport, and like they've been able to get into that green side of motivation that we're talking about. So really, like a group dynamic goes a very long way, and it does feed into all 3 of those, psychological needs that we talked about. So I think that was a really, really good point, Andy, that you brought up.
Yeah,
and it's a good, it's the exact same thing, people going from competitive sports to shows. You go into it where, you know, honestly, like I would say 50% of athletes continue because their parents want them to. So you do it for somebody else. And then when you join a show, it's that group atmosphere and you start to love it. Like you said it exactly. I fell back in love with skating when I joined the show. Yeah.
And it's going back.
Maybe
sorry,
I'm going to
quickly, Jean-Paul. So we're gonna go
really quickly. You know, but that group atmosphere, you know, it's not created by magic. You know, it's maybe a leader behind this or some leadership inside of the group who really develop the environment, make sure to make more connections, so more autonomy, make sure they put the artist or the employee at the right place to use their competence. So it's all that invisible, you know, actions who create that team spirit and create that atmosphere, good atmosphere. But you can have completely the opposite also. So leadership, it's really important. Leadership as a role, but also, you know, self-leadership. And just because you know that framework about motivation, but you know where you can slip, you can go more on ego and rewards. And when you're there, but you have the framework, you know what you need to do to brings you more on the meaning and the fun side.
Yeah, and I've also noticed that trend that more teams at the elite level are starting to have those connections, more training camps together where the athletes are actually coming together and able to have that that atmosphere. Or even like I've noticed, because it is COVID times, that they've been having virtual teams. Like I know the Team Canada gymnasts have been doing virtual team meetings, which is really great to like continue to have that. And then just really quick on what Anna said, the fun green motivation can definitely spread. We've all heard that a smile goes a long way, and you laugh and everyone else will laugh with you. So that was really good.
Yeah, so there's two big things. How we can, as leader, create a surrounding an environment that will facilitate collaboration in a team and help this affiliation. That's what I understood. And there's the why you're doing this. And that's a big question. And just quickly, I'm a big runner. I like to do ultra marathons and big running and prepare for big events. And you prepare for events for years sometimes, and then all your events get canceled. And you get like, oh my God, I've trained so many hours in the mountains running. And then I read an article and it says the mountain will always be there. And for me, it was kind of the reason, well, that's what I like. I like to run in the mountains. I put my sneakers on. I just went running in the mountains, and too bad for the events. But that image stick with me, with the mountain will still be there, and getting back to the why. So now I would like to go, and we will go in some of the questions, but I really want to go really into the pandemic situation. So let's go, because now it's nice, artists and camps and stuff. Perfect, great. But we see some friends, a lot of friends right now, who don't have any shows. Their career is on a threat. They don't know. They have a hard time to motivate because there's no deadline, there's no show, or they don't even find space. They have a hard time with affiliation because there's this social distancing. There's a hard time to fulfill their needs of competency because they cannot show and use their competency, their identity as an artist or an athlete. They wake up in the morning and everything is hard. You wake up and you're like, oh, it's hard. So and that goes with one of the questions here is, do you have any practical advice for how to overcome barriers to self-determination when energy is low and negative thoughts might be prominent? And this has come from Enke Ludenke. I hope I'm saying your name correctly. So do you have any advice in this so particular year, how to stay motivated and to overcome those barriers of self-determination?
Yeah, we worked with a couple of the Olympic level skaters, and for myself and my wife as performers, we kind of took it as this is a year for growth. So we are like, okay, we're going to be on a schedule. First of all, we're not just going to wake up whenever, and we're going to try and learn new things that we wouldn't have a chance to learn when we're always on the road. And then when we're teaching our other teams that are in the competitive world, we're going to teach them tricks that they would never have time to learn in their competitive space. And so, if you focus on it as a year for growth and to expand your repertoire, or even expand who you are as a person, for me, that's really gotten me through. It's changing the focus to that. So having a schedule of, okay, what do I want to do? How do I get there? And then make a plan. Then you have a choice. I think if you don't have a plan and you just wake up whenever and you don't really map out what you want to do or where you want to get to in this certain amount of time, then you feel lost. But if you have a plan and maybe your plan will evolve and your path will change, but you're on your way somewhere rather than standing still.
Yeah.
So pro-action, I heard pro-action, like not waiting for Cirque du Soleil to start back, but saying, let's try something, even if it doesn't work. Anybody else would have different tricks?
I would
you've heard?
Sorry. I would say, start small. I think also the biggest thing that sits in the red zone is comparing yourself to others. It's very easy because I speak to a lot of people. Some people are shut down more than others in other countries. So when you see other people going back to work, you're like, oh, I'm not there yet. So it's very easy to go back into that red zone if you're comparing. And I think I also want to make a comment on the other question in there in terms of people that suffer from mental health or depression. Your success is different to other people's success. So if you get up at an hour earlier than you did the day before, and that's an accomplishment for you, then own that, And I think that some people have really done a lot of things in this pandemic, and some people are just getting by because they've got bills to pay and they've got, kids to worry about, or they've got, other things. So I would say just take one day at a time and try and achieve something that makes you feel good, and don't beat yourself up if you some days when I'm feeling like I haven't got enough done or I haven't done anything, it's like just take a break, have a coffee, sit on the balcony and look at the water for 5 minutes and reset yourself. And I think that's why small milestones is better than nothing, so like Andy said, is have goals and have encourage yourself to grow and develop, but don't beat yourself up if you've got a bad day, right? And you like everybody's had bad days this year, so we're all in the same.
You have to be tolerant with yourself, with others, but also with yourself. And just before Jean-Paul, I will go to you. I think I've heard when in your presentation you say motivation is a skill. So if we treat it as a skill, we can train for it, like we train to do yoga or flexibility or acrobatics.
Exactly.
In the sense that we can sit and say, okay, how can I train my motivation without, and I'm not sure if I'm right, you'll correct me, even if we don't have a clear goal, we can still train our motivation, right? Or
yeah, exactly. I'm just gonna link, the theory with just what Andy and Anna said. Self-regulation, quality of self-regulation, fulfilling our 3 needs. That's the way we will reach meaning, pleasure, and utility. To be present. Right now, we are in the middle of a pandemic, second wave. We need to be present. We need to understand it's really what's going on. People have some difficulty acknowledging people have some difficulties or negative emotions will create a lot of affiliation, and we're gonna get emotionally closer, not by distance, we need to be, but emotionally we will connect more. Just acknowledging negative emotion, it's really, really important. And after that, values, but the quality of your goals every day. You need to have like little goals, and if you move forward little, it's gonna create more competence. You're gonna feel more competence, and after that, more autonomy, and it's like a virtuous circle it's create. And after that, like an intention, clear intention, maybe a long-term one, you need to identify. And the theory explain, they didn't use like a pleasure, meaning, or utility. They are used more integrated regulation, more useful regulation. Regulation means we need to spend some time. We need to work to make sure we are aligning our goals and our behaviors to the meaning or the green part, like Anna said. So it's really important. Clear goals, really small steps, but be present. It's really, really important to have a high quality of self-regulation.
Present, small step. Laurent, Andy, we'll go to you. But Laurent, do you want, Andy, just a minute? Laurent, do you have any tips to share on your side to respond to the question?
Yeah,
and then
I'm reading some
Andy
of
will
these.
Go to you after that.
I'm reading some of these comments, and Eric mentioned, like, I'm really glad this is helping you. As you said, it's been very resonating. And to be honest, even Mario, like, I myself, once the pandemic hit, a lot of things changed. Like, I was expecting to be living moving to Europe and working there on a new show. It didn't happen. It's the first time I've moved back home to Vancouver since high school, really, because I went to university in the States and then went to tour. So it's been a lot of adjustments. My social circle isn't here. And yeah, and then it's kind of like that, okay, well, what now? And so one thing to make sure that, you know, I think Eric mentioned that he's working in a field that he's realized isn't as meaningful to him anymore. And I think a lot of people have found that and found themselves in this position. And to be honest, like, really, it takes a lot of courage to recognize that, but then go forward from that. Okay, so how do we go forward from that? First thing is, well, what is meaningful to you? You know, take a moment, take an evening to really like sit down and just think with yourself, write it down. Like, what do you, not necessarily what do you want to be doing, but like what means the most to you? Like for me, I love being able to have connections with people, tell people stories. And there was a couple months, the first few months of the pandemic, where I just was like a sack of potatoes on the couch, and I didn't want to train. I didn't want to study. I didn't want to do anything, you know, and I was just like, I'm just going to live this retired life. And to realize that that's okay, like you needed that time to reset yourself. It's okay to do that, because then you can move forward with a fresh mind and a fresh perspective and take those leaps needed, because it's not going to be easy to change what's meaningful to you, or not necessarily change, but like change the work that you're doing to make sure that it's meaningful to you. You know, that you're going to have a lot of doubts at certain times. So make sure you're surrounding yourself with people, even showing up to events like this to get new perspectives is a huge step. So yeah, take the time to write down what's meaningful to you, and talk to people to see what else is out there. I think that's the biggest, you know, exposure is going to be great for you to kind of realize and identify yourself with certain things. And, you know, I ended up doing a public relations course randomly, and I actually enjoyed it. I loved it. And now I'm really motivated to start in that field. Still, of course, hoping Cirque comes around, but yeah, so yeah, just take the time for yourself and don't be ashamed of it.
Yeah, and you can accept someday to stay on the couch all day long. You don't have to push yourself. It's part of the process sometimes.
Yeah.
Andy, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, just to talk about a couple of things that Anna and JP talked about being present and also baby steps. Like, I think it's important to make your plan, but you know, a lot of anxiety is caused by looking too far into the future and not being present on what you're doing, you know, doing a task and thinking about 5 other things. For me, that worked a lot. I had a bit of anxiety when this all started. And how I got through it was I was like, okay, I'm just going to really be conscious of what I'm doing right now and turn everything else off, and then take those steps I need to make each day. And that really helped me get through it. And I think just slowing down for a second, doing what you need to do to achieve your goals, but really focusing on the task at hand. And the little things like laying on the couch, or when you go for a walk, take a look around, get out of your head for a minute. You know, those are huge things that have got me through, you know, the tough times of the pandemic. You know, just be aware. Yeah. If a bird is making a noise, like maybe listen to it once in a while. You know?
More is not always better, right?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, exactly.
That's good. Well, that's 2 things I saw and I want to comment in the chat, and then I'll ask you for a last word. It's been an hour, so I feel we could keep going for a long time. But so first of all, a replay will be available for everybody who want to rewatch or re-listen to this. One thing I've read about mental health, and I need to say, as with my background of social intervention, is don't hesitate to call for help. I mean, it's mental health is a big situation right now, so you can try to manage things alone sometimes, but being lonely is not the best thing. So calling a friend, calling a specialist, calling somebody to seek for help is very important right now. So I just wanted to make that you don't need to resolve everything alone on your side. And then there's another thing, and sorry, this is my little editorial, but I had to say it. And then there's something about social media and I'm very curious, and we're going to go to the word of the end, but how do we control all those messages, social media, in the media, in everything that we listen, that also creates some anxiety sometimes, or so I'm in very, very shortly, if you have any tips on those things we can control how we receive those messages, but I don't know, I feel I'm surrounded by things that are quite stressful.
For social media, oh, sorry, Andy. I was just gonna say, for social media, like I've definitely noticed, especially now, people aren't going to work or like have those commutes or whatnot, right? So people are on their phones looking at social probably 90 times more than what they used to be doing. And so making sure that you have that time to just turn it off and set it aside. You know, there's certain days that I've found where I'm really just wanting to see what everyone's up to, and I'm on social media and I realize, like, oh my gosh, an hour, 2 hours have gone by and I've done nothing, you know. But then there's other days where you're just like, I don't even want to look at my phone right now. I don't care how many times it buzzes. I'm just leaving it and walking away. And you need to have those resets, you know. But also making sure that your social media can be really great too. There's tons of accounts that are about mindfulness. You know, I follow the hashtag mindfulness on Instagram, and different accounts that are all about self-autonomy and have motivational quotes. And so my social media feed is full of positive things that can help motivate, or realistic things too. You know, there's sometimes that it's like, yeah, today's crap, but let's move on. You know, like, let's focus on something else. And just having that realistic, I don't know, post just like in your face. It's like, yeah, okay, I'm not the only one going through this.
So it's making choice about what you look at. And I
Definitely.
remember, for me, I was looking at the news maybe 3 or 4 times a day sometimes during the last
and that could be
weeks, because it's kind of, I wanted to know, and sometimes you say, like, well, in 2 days we will announce what are the numbers today, and and there's kind of and then suddenly, as you say, Laurent, I've decided to say, okay, at this hour, I'll put my phone on the side. I'm not going to watch the news all the time, 3 times. And then I went and I bought some magazines, and I say, I have to go back to paper. I have to find something else to do it. So very interesting to make choice. Anna, you wanted to say something, and then we'll make a round. You say what you have to say, and then you can maybe have your word of the end, and then we'll make a tour for everybody to say a last word.
Well, I agree with Laura, Laurent, in the fact that, you control your use of social media, and it's really the only, I'm fascinated by the fact that we're all called social media users, just like the only other definition of user is usually defined in, if you're a drug taker, you're a user, right? So you've got to start with that mental state of saying, okay, I'm not a user, I'm in charge, and I choose, and don't go down the rabbit hole. I mean, I know we all do, of like scrolling and letting it feed you. You choose and you search for the content that you want, as opposed to letting it feed you. And that opens up a whole other discussion about, how things are curated and everything, which is not necessarily a positive thing, because it's always a confirmation of any biases that you have. But as a parent, I see the physical reaction of when my kids have digital products to when they haven't. And they are far more erratic when they have had time on digital devices than if I don't have them during the week, because they're not allowed to use it during the week. They can only have it on the weekends. And my kids turn into nightmares on the weekends. And it's because of those digital devices. And so if that's a physical manifestation in my eyes for my kids, I've got to be conscious that that's also what's happening internally with me. And so I'm always conscious of trying to moderate that, and also set an example for them that, we're not bound by our phone that sits next to us all the time.
And I love your example of users and being in charge. I think this is because they're wise the way they do those things. They're wise to attract us. So let's make a round table to a round screen. I don't know how we say this, but the word of the end. Any last advice? Anything? And then we'll finish with you, Anna, as you host this with TheatreArtLife. And just before, I want to say to everybody, you can follow up the Facebook page of the Projet Lumière. You'll see the replay of this at some point, or the TheatreArtLife website, and where you'll see the replay coming in the coming weeks. So I'll let you the word of the end. So who would like to start? Andy, Laurent, or Jean-Paul?
I can go. Sure. Just quickly on the social media thing, one small adjustment I've recently made in my life is when I wake up, the first thing I used to do is pick up my phone and check it. Now I consciously do not pick up my phone until I've had a cup of coffee. So the first person I check in with now is myself, rather than everybody here. So it's just a simple, practical thing I think everybody can try. It's actually pretty hard to do, especially on those days when you really want to pick it up. Do it. It's just a minute to check in with yourself before the day starts. And then I also just wanted to say, like something Laurent said, don't be afraid to reach out and ask for help when you're struggling. You know, Project LUMIÈRE, a project that we've founded, that's what it's about. Like, it's about connecting people to help each other, to lift each other up, or maybe just to reach out. So, you know, use that tool if anybody needs it. And there's always people there to connect with, you know, get you through.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, I'll go next. Again, this whole event has been really amazing. Project LUMIÈRE was something that, you know, it came in, I think we started it in June, July. And so the pandemic had already been happening for a couple months. And I personally was really just in this, what is going on? You know, we thought it was only going to last a couple of weeks. Now it's dragging on to months. And so Project LUMIÈRE for me gave myself a purpose, you know, some autonomy, and it really motivated me to realize, like, I would have conversations with all my castmates and colleagues, and we'd all be in the same boat of, I can't believe this is happening, you know? And so it's not like we were alone. So the whole point of Project LUMIÈRE was to create this atmosphere and this community. So really, when we say reach out, like, if your inner circle that you're talking to right now isn't giving you the support that you need, then connect with people from other avenues. And Project LUMIÈRE is one of those ways that you can meet someone. You don't have to talk to people that you already know. And sometimes it's nicer to talk to a semi-stranger, you know, you feel like you can open up more without having that judgment. So do that, definitely. You can reach out to me at LA Chong 88 on all the socials. I love social media. So it's funny that we were just talking about it. It can be really bad though. Like, definitely watch. I think it's called The Social Dilemma on Netflix.
Oh yeah,
it's an amazing documentary, and it will definitely make you look at it a little different. But as I said, you can use it for the good as well. I used it to stay connected, and yeah, definitely.
Thank you
for following.
Yeah, thank you so much, Laura. And I just want to add that if you have any tricks to share, like good positive tricks for people, you can share it on the Projet LUMIÈRE Facebook page.
Yeah.
And please share it, because you probably knows many different ways that works for you that could work for others also. Yeah. So Jean-Paul, let's go with you. Last.
Yeah. But you know, the purpose of that collaboration with TheatreArtLife and Projet LUMIÈRE was to propose a strong framework about motivation. Right now, you know, we try to give you the best image we can. You can learn more about it on SelfDetermination Theory.org. And also, you know, just try to use it every day. Just try to know if you fulfill your 3 needs every day. If you're not fulfilling it, why? Just asking a question why, it will help you to guide you. And just, you know, a really quick example, what Andy said about is not watching his phone right now when he woke up in the morning. You know, this is true quality of self-regulation. You know, it's hard, but he self-regulate himself, just being purposeful, being present. And after that, he go into his day like this. It's exactly what it is, motivation. It's a skills. You need to practice it. You need to apply in it. And that framework is really powerful. And yeah, for sure, you know, we want to see you use it. So thank you.
Yeah, and thank you, Jean-Paul. And for sure, go Google self-determination theory. You will find a website with a lot of resources and theoretical stuff and scientific stuff, and go search for it. So, Anna, you have the last word of this event. Thank you so much for TheatreArtLife for doing this. It's amazing.
Oh, you're most welcome. And I want to echo, I think, your sentiments in terms of reaching out, with Project Lumiere or TheatreArtLife. This time for me has been an effort to connect with people and connect people. And we've been able to do that today. So I appreciate, getting to know you all better, but also if there's things that you feel from your own perspective that you want to see or hear or talk about in your attempt to generate motivation, that is what TheatreArtLife is doing right now. People are writing to us and say, I want to talk about this, or I want to talk about that. And we have a slew of podcasts and webinars, and we've got content producers that can write about what you want to talk about. So stay in touch with Project Lumiere, stay in touch with TheatreArtLife, reach out to us at any time. My product, TheatreArtLife, is for this industry. It is for you, and it's always been about that. I don't make any money from it. I do pay some people, but I don't make it. It's personally a passion project, and it's getting bigger and bigger because people have realized, especially this year, that there is a need for connection and community in our industry that is so badly suffering this year. And I really feel that the way that we're going to get through this is by staying together and holding strong until we can get back on stage.
Anna, such great words. Staying connected, and if we're not connected on a stage, we can be connected in many other ways. And TheatreArtLife is a fantastic platform for that. So stay connected. Thank you so much, everybody. It was such a pleasure. I've learned a lot. I took some notes, and I feel very motivated to go in my evening right now without my phone. No, thank you so much. This was amazing. Thank you for everybody for listening. And as we said, there's a replay will come. So if anybody want to rewatch this or re-listen to this, it's going to be easy. So thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you,
Thanks,
everyone.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
All right,
Take
ending it
care.
now. Cheers. Bye.
Bye.